Hi everyone, it's Miss Debbie from NACOG Head Start for story time, and this is the third book in our series about the three little pigs. But this one is the three little javelinas. Javelinas. Those are the southwestern cousins to the pigs. They're a little smaller and they're really hairy. Okay, here's some pictures of javelinas here. Okay. Now, just like in the story of the three little pigs, the javelinas build houses using their own materials that they find in the desert. So they're going to be a little different than the materials we heard in the other stories. And there's, of course, a villain, the bad guy, if you will. In the other stories, remember, it was the big bad wolf. Well, in the three little javelinas, it's the cousin of the wolf, the coyote, because coyotes live in the desert. Okay, the coyote wants to eat the javelinas, and they do not want to be eaten. So let's find out what happens. This is also written in Spanish. So up here is the Spanish. Down here is the English. The Three Little Javelinas, written by Susan Lowell, and it's illustrated by Jim Harris. Okay, here we go. Once upon a time, way out in the desert, there were three little javelinas. They're wild, hairy, southwestern cousins of pigs. Their heads were hairy, their backs were hairy, and their bony legs, all the way down to their hard little hooves, were very hairy, but their snouts were pink and soft. Snouts are their nose. One day, the three little javelinas trotted away to seek their fortunes. In this hot, dry land, the sky was almost always blue. Steep purple mountains looked down on the desert where the cactus forest grew. Soon the little javelinas came to a spot where the path divided, and each one went a different way. Oh, they look like they're having a good time. The first little javelina wandered lazily along. He didn't see a dust storm whirling across the desert until it caught him. The whirlwind blew away and left the first little javelina sitting in a heap of tumbleweeds. Oh my goodness. Brushing himself off, he said, I'll build a house with them. And in no time at all, he built a house with tumbleweeds. Oh my goodness. Does that look like something you want to build a house with? Well, then along came the coyote. He ran through the desert so quickly and so quietly that he was almost invisible. That means you couldn't see him. In fact, this was only one of Coyote's many magical tricks. He laughed when he saw the tumbleweed house and smelled the javelina inside. A tender, juicy piggy, he thought. Coyote was tired of eating mice and rabbits. He called out sweetly, little pig, let me come in. Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin, shouted the first javelina, who had a lot of hair on his chinny chin chin. Well, then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in, Coyote said. And he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the little tumbleweed house away. But in all of the hubbub, the first little javelina escaped and went looking for his brother and sister. Coyote, who was very sneaky, tiptoed along behind. So hullabaloo is like great excitement, loud noise. So the second little javelina walked for miles among giant cactus plants called saguaros. They held their ripe red fruit high in the sky, but they made almost no shade, and the little javelina grew hot. Then he came upon a Native American woman who was gathering sticks from inside a dried up cactus. She planned to use these long sticks called saguaro ribs to knock down the sweet cactus fruit. The second little javelina said, "Please, may I have some sticks to build a house?" "How," she said, which means yes in the language of the desert people. When he was finished building his house, he lay down in the shade. Then his brother arrived, panting from the heat, and the second little javelina moved over and made a place for him. So now they're in the house that the second javelina built of sticks. Sounds familiar. Pretty soon, Coyote found the saguaro rib house. He used his magic to make his voice sound just like another javelina's. Little pig, let me come in," he called. But the little javelinas were suspicious. Means they didn't trust what they heard. The second one cried, "No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." "Ah, bah," said the coyote. "I am not going to eat your hair." Then Coyote smiled, showing all of his sharp teeth. "I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed and he puffed, and all the saguaro ribs came tumbling down. But the two little javelinas escaped into the desert. Still not discouraged, Coyote followed. So he wasn't going to give up. He was not discouraged. Sometimes his magic did fail, but then he usually came up with another trick. So there they are. They're running away. Wonder where they're going this time. Where will they go? The third little javelina trotted through beautiful palo verde trees with green trunks and yellow flowers. She saw a snake sliding by, smooth as oil. A hawk floated round and round above her. Then she came to a place where a man was making adobe bricks from mud and straw. They looked like this. The bricks lay on the ground, baking in the hot sun. The third little javelina thought for a moment and said, "May I please have a few adobes to build a house?" "Sí," answered the man, which means yes in Spanish, the brickmaker's language. So the third javelina built herself a solid little adobe house, cool in summer and warm in winter. When her brothers found her, she welcomed them in and locked the door behind them. But Coyote followed their trail. Oh, that wily coyote, what's he up to? Little pig, let me come in," he called. The three little javelinas looked out the window. This time, Coyote pretended to be very old and weak, with no teeth and a sore paw. But they were not fooled. "No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin," called back the third little javelina. "Well, then I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in," said Coyote. He grinned, thinking of the wild pig dinner he thought was coming. "Just try it," shouted the third little javelina. So Coyote huffed and puffed, but the adobe bricks didn't budge. That means they didn't move. Again Coyote tried. "I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." The three little javelinas covered their hairy ears, but nothing happened. So the javelinas peeked out the window. And they're covering their ears. Look, he was trying to pretend he was old and weak. And he's very tricky. Another one of his magic tricks. Is it going to work? The tip of Coyote's raggedy tail whisked right past their noses. He was climbing upon the tin roof. Next, Coyote used his magic to make himself very skinny. "The stovepipe," gasped the third little javelina. Quickly, she lighted a fire inside her wood stove. What a feast it will be, Coyote said to himself. He squeezed into the stovepipe. I think I'll eat them with red hot chili sauce. Whoosh! Sizzle! Then the three little javelinas heard an amazing noise. It was not a bark. It was not a cackle. It was not a howl. It was not a scream. It was all of those sounds together. Yap, yap, yip, yow! Away ran a puff of smoke shaped like a coyote. Oh, you see that? Look at that. Oh. The three little javelinas lived happily ever after in the adobe house. And if you ever hear a coyote's voice way out in the desert at night, well, you know what he's remembering. Look, there he is, howling in the desert at the moon. The coyote. Oh, oh, oh! Do you ever hear that at night outside your homes? Well, that's the end. The end of the story. So, do you think those tumbleweeds made a strong house? I don't know. I don't think so. It didn't last long, did it? So in the first story of the three little pigs, pig number 1 made his house out of straw, pig number 2 used sticks, and pig number 3 used bricks. In the three javelinas, it was kind of like that. The first one built his out of tumbleweeds. The second one built his out of the sororo ribs. Remember the cactus ribs? And the third one used adobe bricks. Which of these was not strong? Which one was really strong? Was that the same in all of the stories? What would you use to build your house? I hope I've given you some things to think about. And that was our third story in our series, The Three Little Javelinas. Remember, they're the cousins to our three little pigs. Okay, one more to go. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Your local library may have this book available for checkout. Remember to read every day. Happy reading!